All right, folks, let's get started. Good morning. All right, hopefully everyone had a good trading day yesterday. Mixed bag yesterday as far as the markets are concerned, but overall, I would say there were some good opportunities. So, why don't we take a look at some of them yesterday? So, first up is Summit SMMT. Here it is on the screen. Now, this is one of the stocks that um, we have been watching for the last few days, and let me just highlight what happened yesterday. All right. Okay, here's the start of the day. So the stock had gapped down at first. So notice it had a pretty strong finish. Sorry. Had a pretty strong finish on the 6th. The stock gapped down, and then after that, we had a period where it looked like it might go somewhere here. Then it didn't. Then it came back down below the VWAP range on the 5 minute view. Then it starts to come back up. This was a great opportunity to attempt to get in. Some of you, I believe, did at this point. But if you missed that, you had the breakaway move here. And this took, this is a 5 minute bar, or candle, so it did take a while for that to finish, but that was probably the best single opportunity. Well, actually, this was the best opportunity. This is the second best. And then after that, basically sold off, came all the way down to the bottom of the VWAP range and then bounced back up. So you had a second chance. It's hard to see here because of this doji-like candle, but that was actually a good place too. And then after that, just rolled. It just continued going up. Technically, this would have been an opportunity as well. So there are lots of opportunities, and this was one of the stocks that I did warn. I'd make sure you keep an eye on, because if it's trading a lot of volume, then at some point it may break to the upside. And as I mentioned before, the stock is trading a lot more volume in the last couple of days than it's traded all year. So yesterday's volume was not nearly as strong as the previous day, but it's still strong. All right. So yesterday's volume came in at 100, just over 100 million shares. The day before it came in at 150, almost 157 million shares. So it's a lot of volume. So definitely was definitely worth looking at. Okay, and this is all coming off of their partnership, which is with another company, which I believe is valued at $1 billion or so. So pretty strong. Okay. Now, next up, we have GOS, GOSS. Now, GOS was actually a stock that's been going down, but sometimes these present an opportunity for bullish trends. So here's yesterday. That's where we started. And it was a really rocky road, to be candid. It wasn't that easy to trade, but by the time we got to about here, there was clearly a transitional move to upward momentum. Then it failed again, and then it came back. So as you can notice, the best opportunities to get into this were when the stock starts to rebound from below the VWAP range, which would make sense if since the stock was overall bearish, but it would have rebound moves from the lows. So as long as you were watching for that, this would be an opportunity you could exploit. Just remember that, in short, a lot of stocks will find support once they're one standard deviation below the VWAP, but they can still trend down. They just usually won't go past that line or too far past it. They'll just kind of pace themselves with the line, with the border. But sometimes they make a sharp enough move, and buyers just snap up those shares right away. So when that happens, you get a nice rebound. All right, next up, PayPal. Now, PayPal yesterday was very explosive. One of the members in the coaching room pointed this one out as it happened. Now, at the time that this breakout occurred, that was during the period where I'm not doing my broadcast for the coaching room. That was almost 10 minutes, almost exactly 10 minutes after I ended that. So the people who heard from one of the members about this opportunity, hopefully you're able to take advantage of some of it. The first part of the move you might have missed, but after it pulled back, consolidated for a bit, it did resume, and that resumption part of it was where I would say the best opportunity was. So hopefully some of you got a piece of the second part of that action. And the stock was moving up because of comments made by the CEO during a conference, just in case anyone was wondering why. All right, now the one that I really liked the most yesterday was FITB, which is Fifth Third. Now, I don't bank with Fifth Third, but I used to back in college, so I remember this company very well. Also, I should mention that this was also a fantastic short selling opportunity back on the 5th. I wasn't looking for it, but that was definitely one. So usually I don't look for stuff like this, but if you happen to find any stock that starts off the day that strongly, as long as you're in it early enough, try to get in. And this one just kept running and running and running and running. That actually is one of the best short, directional moves I've ever seen. But as I've mentioned before in the coaching room, any stocks that have had really strong moves recently, whether they're up or down, there's a good tendency for them to do that again. Sometimes you have a stock that gets sold and it really moves down for a bit. Then after a while, it hits a place where no one wants to sell anymore, so then people buy it up. And that's apparently what happened for this one. So at market open, right here, this started to move up. Now, I didn't actually catch it at the beginning of the move. We actually caught it a little later, and it was actually, I believe, this pullback here, this small pullback there, which is really on the extreme, but I did mention that this probably could continue to go up. So I noticed some of you took advantage of that, one of you in particular, and it actually went exactly to the price target that I mentioned, which was 33.26. Excuse me. So 33.36, not 26. 33.36 was the target I had set for where the stock might top out. It actually went exactly to that price and then sold off. So usually I don't get that precise, but that was. Usually you get a little bit of where you get close to it or just above it or just below it. But in this case, it went right to a number and then sold off. So hopefully some of you, I know at least one of you took advantage of that, but hopefully more of you did too. All right, other stocks that I should mention that look like they could do something, but didn't, or at least didn't do what we needed them to do. Well, actually, ESPR is a easy to borrow stock, so you could have short sold this with no problems. So this is actually an ideal, in my opinion, an ideal short selling situation. You have a stock that strongly gaps higher on some news, and then after the gap higher, it fades immediately and sells off. That is positive. That's perfect. They had some. The reason why they jumped was because of they're meeting a primary endpoint for a trial, but I'm guessing after that news was announced, the analysis afterwards was not so positive, so therefore they sold off. I love looking for catalyst-driven moves, opportunities, because as long as they are like this, where you can trade both sides, both directions of the market, this is great. Now, for those of you not clear, what I mean by that is, good morning. If you have a stock that's hard to borrow, you may not be able to find shares. You have to locate shares to short sell. That's one of the topics that we discussed during some of the downtime where the market was cooling off yesterday. Short selling is great. Okay, some of you don't do it. Some people have a certain moral or emotional detachment from doing it. But in trading, trust me, you want to be able to go long and short. You want to make sure you can trade both sides of the market. Short selling is a little more tricky, in my opinion, because usually stocks aren't as Like you'll get stocks to make these unbelievably dramatic moves up, but usually moves down are not quite like this. Most of the time, you catch a stock that moves down, it's very brief and then it stops, and that's it, or it's brief and then it rebounds partially. In this case, as I mentioned in the coaching room, I like to look for stocks that are up like a lot and then they fade. Those are usually the best opportunities. Sometimes you'll catch a stock where it's up, it moves up at the beginning of the day, so you take advantage of that. Then it flips over, then you take advantage of that too. So in this case, it was a pretty straightforward fadeaway. I mean, this was not hard to read. There's your low, right? So there's the first 5 minutes, it moves up, goes neutral, and then it started to fade over here. And as it was happening, I did mention that this does not look like it's going to keep going up. I didn't specifically say you should short sell or look for a short, but I think some of you probably did. So this one was very clean. And after that, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better downtrend. It just kept going and going and going. So hopefully some of you took advantage of that. This stock actually went even beyond the $6.86 lower target that I would have expected. It got there, as you can see here, and then it went sideways for a long time, and then it faded again. So there was a second chance right here to get into that right at the middle of the day. So hopefully some of you either caught part of that or all of that. Okay. All right. Now, MMAT was disappointing for some of you because it did have a lot of volume yesterday, but it just would not move. And that's fine. As I mentioned before, well, this one did move down, and then at the end of the day, or towards the end of the day, it had a sharp move up. It looked like it might go somewhere, but it never went too far. So if you took advantage of this last move in the day, it did take you about 10 cents higher, which is not fantastic, but it didn't really go any farther than that. So this one was kind of a dud yesterday. But it's not a stock that you can short sell. It's hard to borrow. But what I was going to mention is, as I did in the room, if you're looking at a stock and it's not doing what you're looking for, don't just hold in it. Okay, one of you actually in the coaching room, got into this stock, and it was going sideways, and the volume was up, and you just said, I'm just waiting for something to happen. And I said, well, that's no problem waiting for something to happen, but you don't have to be in the trade waiting for it to happen. I don't think it's advantageous at all to just sit in a trade unless it's something of a nature where you have to be in it early, because once it moves, it's going to be very sudden. An example of that would be if you were in a swing trade because you were expecting that a company was going to get a buyout offer from another company. Well, when that buyout offer comes, yes, the stock's going to just immediately leap forwards. You won't have any time to get into the trend. So in that situation, I would say, yeah, just park your money early and wait. But even with that, it's usually a little better just to try to get in the moment that news hits, so you could have like stop losses outside of the range, and then if the market moves, it'll trigger your stop as it goes up, and that will of course be a buy stop because you'd be looking to go long. You'd be using that to enter the trade. But even with that, I would still say that most of the time you do better just waiting in that trade, and of course you're going to have to deal with the ups and downs that occur as you're waiting. Right. Now, for day trading, generally speaking, you don't have to think about stuff like that because most likely you're not going to be aware of any information that's going to move the stock suddenly intraday. So therefore, until that news hits. So therefore, no need to park the money into that trade. Good morning, Chris. All right. Next up, RXDX. This was one that one of you brought up to my attention. And there it is. Big move up off of some news. The news was, where was it? Let's see. What was that again? Can't see that. Prometheus Biosciences says phase 2 trials of PRA023 show strong efficacy in treating ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. So the stock moved up very sharply off of that. They also mentioned that they're going to be selling more shares a little later. They going to sell $250 million of common stock. This is a common tactic. After a company's got some good news, they then offer new shares to raise more money to continue doing whatever they're researching, which means that most likely this is not a profitable company. But let's just take a look and see if I'm right. We'll hop over to the Madison Trading Software and let's look at RXDX. Here it is. And as I guessed, these are the earnings pointing downwards, meaning that the company's losing money, both expected and realized they're losing. In terms of analyst targets, actually, there are some. Stock is trading way above all of the analyst targets, but that makes sense because just now they got the news about their drug trial, so that changes the picture. So I wouldn't even think about what the analysts are saying in this case, since they're at the company's at a different phase of its evolution. But yeah, all together, this is a company that spends money. You can see the net income trends down, sales are trending up, but the net income trails down. Cash flow trails down, free cash flow trails down. This is normal stuff, by the way. This is very normal. Most companies are in the research phase. That's what they look like. But if they have a very good product, then it's only a matter of time before another company buys them out. So if I were you, if you're an investor, on your longer term portfolio, definitely read up on something like this because that big of a leap and it's still up there. I'm looking at it pre-market. It's still trading up there. That means that there's some real comfort for people trading at that price level. So that must mean that they have some projections about how valuable this company will be, how much revenue it will make. Now, for day trading, I don't know if this is going to be a good opportunity going forwards. A lot of times when you get leaps like this big off of news like that, the stock doesn't do as much as you would expect. It basically just chopped around, drifting lower mostly. And some of you mentioned that you would trade it as a fade, like people are going to take profits. So let me look at short selling. Well, it's a hard to borrow stock, so you probably wouldn't be able to short sell it unless you luckily find some shares. But if you look at the price action, is this really what you want to be short? If you compare that to what we saw for ESPR, that's a short selling opportunity. That's where you want, or FITB days ago, that's what you want. You want a real short selling opportunity. So it's worth looking at. I don't blame anybody for looking at it and checking out to see what it's going to do. That was right. That was the right thing to do. But when you don't see it doing the follow through, leave it alone. So I did put it on the list, but as I mentioned, I wasn't sure that there was going to be any real opportunity. I definitely did not expect a massive sell-off because the news seemed pretty solid. It wasn't like, something where you would have a lot of debate. When the company comes out and says the drug has showed strong efficacy, not like it met its endpoint. No, they're making strong statements. When they make strong statements, unless someone can come out and prove them wrong, which of course would lead to a very sharp decline in the stock, it's most likely just going to hold its ground until other people evaluate whether or not they think it's worth moving the price any higher. So that's exactly what we saw yesterday. Now, towards the middle of the day, it did have a decent run here, right in the middle of the day. Not necessarily something you would have caught, but there it is. So you had a nice little jump there. And it was a pretty good sized move that went up about $4 a share. So if you caught this move, great. You would have to wait for it, but once again it occurred towards the bottom of the first standard deviation below the VWAP. You had a false start here that didn't succeed, and you had the secondary one that did succeed. So I do say that this did present some opportunities later in the day. So perhaps some of you were taking advantage of that too. All right. DBGI, I put this on the radar. It didn't do very much, but it was very active pre-market. So on my list, if I see something that's active pre-market, I do put it on there, and we wait and see at the open if it does anything. This one did chop around a bit, but it didn't really catch a strong bid, so therefore not much to do there. Also, we saw ENSC was very busy, but this stock has been falling apart after initially being a pretty good mover up. It's mostly been moving down ever since then. So this one's been a roller coaster of movement over the last 30 days. This is just the last week, but as you can see, it's been fading away very gradually. So the volume is high, and I do think that if this stock starts to get to averaging below $1, watch out, because that means that you'll probably get a nice move up at some point as people try to catalyze the stock to go up. Otherwise, it'll get delisted from the Nasdaq. Now, it's not at that point now, but if it trades under $1 for a significant period of time, the rules are the Nasdaq, you have to have an average price above $1. So if that happens, they're going to basically delist it. Okay, so that's what we got there. Now, moving forwards, let's take a look at some of the stocks that might be interesting at the open. All right. Let me see here. I think I've got this stock already, RNAZ. I believe it's already on my list. If it's not, I'm going to add it now. RNAZ, I believe it's already on my list. But yeah, it is. It's already there. So I added this stock not because we're going to trade it yet, but I want to have it ready. I don't do anything for stocks under $1. But once this is trading successfully over $1, which it did do briefly yesterday, then we want to start looking at trading it. So the stock symbol's RNAZ, not something that I'm going to look at getting into at the open or watching at the open, but just something to keep in mind. Summit once again is active, SMMT, so I will add that to the radar. So let me just put that down now. So SMMT once again is on the radar for this morning. Okay. And again, mostly what I'm looking for, guys, are movers. I'm not, I am looking for anything that looks like it can make a substantial movement. I don't necessarily have to find something that's going to go up, just to be clear. But I'm usually looking for upward moves because they tend to be much stronger. And so therefore, why waste them? You know, why waste, if I can get a bigger move going up than down, I'll take the bigger move because it makes me and you more money. So definitely Summit on the radar. Tor had a decent move yesterday. I don't usually like to pursue that stock because the price movements for Tor, TOUR, typically are in a fairly narrow range. They don't really move that far. Like if you look at the movement over a week, it's went from $1 to $1.75, which is a good percentage gain. But I like to see stocks that can do, you know, that type of movement in half the time. So this one, decent mover, but very slow. Some of you did exploit this one yesterday, so I should mention that a lot of you mentioned this one. So hopefully some of you were able to make some money off of it. But as I mentioned, I just don't want to emphasize that one in the room since it's a little slow of a mover. Okay, here's a stock that is really moving pre-market, PHVS. This is not a stock that is on my watch list as far as I know. So you can see right here, this is the past activity of the stock. Closed out yesterday at 251, very choppy, very slow, not a lot of volume. That's what it normally looks like. But here we have the current bid ask, 423 at 426. So this thing is way up. Currently, the news is trading higher after the company reported top-line phase 2 data from the Rapid E1 study, PHV S416, for on-demand treatment of HAE attacks. Okay, the primary endpoint and secondary endpoints were met. So it's up. I will say watch this at the open for sure. I don't know if it's going to continue to go up, and I don't know if there's any negative opinions that may come out about that stock that could move it in the other direction. Now, this stock has no shares to borrow, so short selling it's not really an option, but you should keep an eye on it. So um, let me just add that one too. Okay, so we got those two. Uh, Next up, actually, let me add this over here. I forgot PHVS. So I'm adding that to our watch list now. That's it right there. Currently up 66.53%, trading 6.5 million shares. So I saw that on a pre-market scan. Now Billy, I don't know what happened here, but Billy jumped overnight. BILI. This has been one of the best stocks on our list. Did have a good day yesterday, by the way. I forgot to mention Billy was a good mover. I missed it altogether, but some of you did mention it, so glad you were able to take advantage of it. I don't see a specific reason why Billy's up so much. Don't see the exact reason why it's up. So this could be short-lived. This could actually sell off at the open, but keep an eye on that. Billy could. I think Billy's going to be a mover today, but it might actually fade after the opening bell. Currently, it's trading at 23.89 or so. Last trade was at 23.52, but if you look here, it was trading at 21.60 something. Let's say 21.70 yesterday. So here's Billy. You can see the volume there. It's active, so I'm going to put that on the radar. But I don't have a expectation that's going to go up. There's a good chance it may go down, so just bear that in mind. There's a very good chance that may fade, judging by the degree to which it jumped overnight, and I don't see any specific reason why, so I'm going to be a little skeptical about that one, but it's on the radar either way. Okay? So just watch out. It may fade. So if it does, take the short selling opportunity. This is Billy is an easy to borrow stock, so you should have no issues whatsoever short selling that stock. Let's see. Okay, here's another stock that is moving after hours. Rent, R-E-N-T. This is moving off of earnings that came out yesterday after market. Looks like the earnings must have came out positive. This stock moved up to a high of $1.84 after the news. It's been fading since then, but it hasn't retread all of its ground. Still, it's trading at 156, 157. Looks like the last trade was 158. Yesterday it was at about 136. So I'll add this to the radar as something to watch, but sorry, forgot to add Billy. I'll add this as something to watch, but I don't have any strong expectations. This is a hard to borrow stock, but we'll see. So I'll put it on the list, and like I said, I don't have extreme confidence that this will move in any way that we'll be able to exploit, but I do think it's worth keeping on the radar just in case it does. So post earnings might create some good volatility intraday. So that's rent. That is the symbol. Okay. All right. Now moving on. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. Nope, not that one. All right, this one's a downward mover. Excuse me. Iger, they had news about a hepatitis phase 3 trial, but the market does not seem to consider this to be positive. even though they said they met their endpoint and showed statistical significance. But this one is not looking good at all. It is down sharply. The symbol is EIGR. I'm going to add that to our list. I didn't add rent to our list just because I don't think that's going to be a permanent fixture in our watch list. But EIGR, it's not showing up on the screening for movement today because it's so far down. So let's keep an eye on that. All right, EIGR is a symbol. I'll add that as the last addition. And let me just look quickly to see if anything else is moving. Okay, so got that one. So I don't know which direction. This is an easy to borrow stock, so it could be short sold or bought. So just keep that in mind. Momo just had earnings. It's up from where it was yesterday. It's already on our list here. I don't think the movement that I'm seeing pre-market is enough to justify keeping a close watch on it. All right, so I'm going to jump into the coaching room now. If you're not a member of the coaching room, be sure to join. If you are already a member of our services, all you got to do is log into our broadcast on Webinato on Novia, and then you'll be able to check out what's going on. All right, so I'm jumping over there now. You folks have a fantastic trading session, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning at the same time. All right, take care.